welcoming today my friend George B., the CEO of U.S. Gold Corporation. George, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Chris. And hope you're enjoying your summer.
Well, trying to. It's got a little bit steamy here in Florida, but imminently we're going to be heading up to the northern part of the U.S. for the balance of the summer to see my kids and grandkids, and hopefully at least some cooler evenings like what we've had down here. Folks, in a minute, you're going to learn a lot about U.S. Gold Corporation. Before we get to that, a couple preliminaries. George and or myself might be making some forward-looking statements. And here you see the reminder of that from their own corporate presentation. You need to do your own due diligence on a company. We'll give you some ammunition today and some tools to do that. But please do check out the company. Here's their website and their Twitter handle on the screen. And, this company to me, which I've known of for a number of years, got reacquainted with when George and I were with each other, and also the company's Luke Norman. Luke's the chairman, correct, George?
Yeah, he's the executive chairman now.
He's executive chairman. Well, we got reacquainted down at the Mines and Money show in Miami earlier this year. And it was kind of at the behest of a couple of people and also myself, looking at the progress they've made, especially on their project in Wyoming. So we wanted to roll up our sleeves and do some work for U.S. Gold. I added it to my recommended list of the national investor. And having said that, here on the screen as well, I want you to be reminded that we cover the company in the national investor. The company has also compensated us for some copywriting and public relations work that we're doing, of which this is a part. And so that said, George, you and I, when we visited, we talked an awful lot about some of the big picture reasons why yours, I think, at least, is a compelling story. People who have followed me for a while know the new FANGs theme that I've talked about, the secular tailwinds behind gold and copper. There's a plethora of that kind of stuff, folks, on my own website. Here on the screen is U.S. Gold's website information. Follow them there, follow them on Twitter, and get acquainted with this story, because it checks boxes where copper is concerned, where gold is concerned, where the jurisdiction that they're in, near term, more importantly, in the state of Wyoming is concerned. And of course, when we're at a place where, even though our government at the national level has been too slow, in my view, in a lot of respects, to get us off of dependence on foreign sources of so many things, that's another thing that we have here with a somewhat made in America story, where copper and gold, and perhaps more down the road, are concerned. So, George, you kind of came out of retirement because you were so interested in what U.S. Gold was doing and you wanted to roll up your sleeves. Tell us why you did that.
Gosh, I got over 40 years of experience operating and developing mines. And, I finished up with one of the big corporations, Barrick Gold Corporation, and I was enjoying life. But, you really want to put some of that experience and knowledge to work. And gosh, what an opportunity we saw in Wyoming. And I was really happy to do it. I must admit, I'm very fortunate. I live in Park City, Utah, so getting over to Cheyenne, Wyoming is just a hop, skip, and a jump, and it's real easy. I don't have to go to the top of the Andes anymore, and actually contributing to something in the domestic U.S. is really exciting. And along your theme of the whole supply side, you look at resource nationalism. We saw news today that Mali's seeking to increase its ownership stake in resource companies, gold in particular. Great to be able to do something in the United States.
Well, and as you just pointed out, there's a lot of understanding within the mining industry, and whether it's base metals, gold, or uranium, whatever, of what we're facing, even if the markets are largely asleep still to all of these different facts. But while you were talking, we put on the screen a map so people can know where the CK Gold Project is, the U.S. Gold's flagship project in Wyoming. And like you said, you're not out in the middle of a jungle someplace. You're not up at the 2 miles elevation in the Andes Mountains or something like that. You're in the good old U.S. of A. And especially important, I think, is the fact that you've had a lot of support in the local press, especially, and we're going to get to this in a few minutes with one of the permits, key one that you just received. But you've gotten some good local press because, outside of some of the noisier places in the media that aren't always friendly to resources, you're out in a place in the Western US where people understand extractive industries. They understand that in the US, we've got a lot of ability demonstrated in the past and untapped, really, still going forward, to be able to produce the things that we need for the green economy, for infrastructure building and rebuilding, and all of that kind of thing. Now, tell us a little bit about, give us an overview before we get into a few of the pieces of the CK Gold project.
Well, look, one of the things that attracted me was location, as you just mentioned. Location. It's like real estate. So, as you look at the project, we're an hour and a half north of Denver, 4 hours south of Gillette, Wyoming, and 6 hours to the east of Salt Lake City. So we've got everything around us, major infrastructure and so on. So, just from the perspective of the project, okay, so it's in Wyoming. Wyoming's a resource state. Coal, gold, oil and gas, gold now, oil and gas, trona. So a diversification into copper and gold. This is a historic mining area, the Silver Crown mining district where we're operating. But we're in a state that understands the resource sector. They have contributed to the nation's resource requirements, and the authorities are very cooperative and helpful to promote the project. So the project, dead simple. We've got a quarry just down to about 3 miles to our south. We'll be open pit mining just like the quarry, so the folks around us understand. We're crushing and grinding the material. We're using froth flotation. We develop a concentrate that gets shipped off site for smelting. So really, no real nasty chemicals on site, no stack emissions and so on. That'll happen. The metal extraction happens at a smelter somewhere like Kennecott, for example, in Utah.
Sure. Okay. Now, besides the high level support that you've gotten in the area, just from people who conceptually like the idea of, more production, more jobs, Wyoming doing a little bit to help the broad national cause of resource nationalism and producing copper and gold, maybe some other things down the road as well. You've got a phenomenal, I think, economic story, George. You're operating, at least at the moment, with presumptions made in a pre-feasibility study from the end of 2021, which I think you're going to be updating late this year or thereabouts. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, we've held off until we've got a little bit more visibility on the final permit, but the feasibility study is ready to go.
But the one from end of 2021, for those who have read it, and I've reported on it, discussed some of the numbers in it and so forth, it's remarkable from a number of standpoints. First of all, it would provide, with what is known now, the pretty robust open pit mine, a little over 100,000 ounces of gold equivalent per year between the gold and the copper. But the numbers that you based, the assessment on, were really lowballed, and you don't always see that. A lot of times it's over promise and under deliver. You guys are starting out doing quite the opposite of that.
Yeah, no, look, we used 1625 gold and 325 a pound copper. We all know where gold and copper is at the moment, and gosh, where's the copper going to come from? You can see in the background of my overlay there's windmills, this renewable energy, electrification. Where's the copper going to come from? So no, we're very bullish on both the gold price, as the value of our dollar is eroded, and also the copper, so that we can meet the demands of electrification and infrastructure that are ahead of us.
Well, sure. And I mean, there has been for a while now a growing recognition. And again, this is more so within the mining industry than it has been where investors are concerned, that I think are still asleep on this. But you've got stockpiles dwindling. A lot of the major gold production in the world, copper production in the world right now is lower grade. It takes more ore to be produced to get less of a return. And I heard it said a while back that when referring to one of the big copper mines in the world in South America, Escondida, there needs to be something like 8 Escondidas brought online in the next decade to meet the demand for copper, and they ain't there.
Yeah, well, it's basic mineral economics, and you put that atop of a situation where there hasn't been much money going into exploration and resource. So where is the supply coming from? The major companies, investors have been seeking the highest returns. They mine their best material first. So they're left with a lower grade, as you rightly point out. The supply is sort of dwindling, and we need to plug that gap. So with us, we hope to be a shovel-ready project just around the corner and meet that demand, which is coming at us like a freight train.
Well, it certainly is. And so you already have, based on the assumptions in the pre-feasibility study from 2021, a robust and very economically attractive project. There's a few ways in which that might get better down the road. While we were discussing, I put the one table up from the PFS that shows how the numbers would be even more robust if prices were higher. We already know that. But a couple other factors that people should keep in the back of their mind as far as the CK project. First of all, you're not necessarily done exploring here, are you?
Oh, heck no. Look, money's been tough to come by. As of January, our last public statement, we had 5.1 million in treasury. We raised another 5 million to see us through 2024 permitting feasibility study. But there was no point, putting additional money into exploration. We know that we've got an expansion of the ore body down at depth and down to our southeast. But when money's so hard to come by, we really didn't want to dilute our shareholders. Just to prove up those additional ounces that we know are there. The key issue was really to get the permit and to demonstrate with the feasibility study of the value proposition. So that's where we are. We got upside there, and that's just one of the upsides that we see.
Well, and the other conceivably, of course, would be if metals prices are higher. We may learn more when you decide to put out that updated pre-feasibility study. But as you rightly pointed out yourself, George, and I can tell you this from umpteen other exploration companies and near development companies that I've been looking at and cover, the market right now would not care. So you're absolutely right. If you did more exploration and said, oh, we just increased our reserves by 25% or whatever, who cares? Nobody does right now. Right or wrong, that's just the market. But what I think is getting some traction, and which is, of course, what you're focusing on, are economics. Some time back, I wrote an article called "Gold Companies Are Companies Too." And yeah, gold is nice, but show us the money. Show us that you can actually produce something economically, make some money, make cash flow, and all that kind of stuff. So talking about permitting, you just announced several days ago that you did get one key permit. So you're a lot farther along in that regard. Tell us a bit about it and the relevance and what's left.
Yeah, so look, there are two major permits that we have, and so the first one that we have, we were approved in May, unanimous approval from the Environmental Council, was the industrial siting permit. So Wyoming's a state, 600,000 odd people, lots of resource. It's a big open expanse, and if you got a major capital investment coming into a rural area, what the state has done in Wyoming is they've said, look, if that capital exceeds a certain threshold, we can offer the local community, the local authorities, money from state coffers to support, to accommodate the influx of people, whether it's for emergency services or infrastructure, to accommodate that capital investment. So we went through that industrial siting process, and we started it last year. It relates to traffic impacts, noise and nuisance, the impact, the usage of water. We had to declare how many jobs that we were going to create, how many taxes we were going to pay, and so on. That went in through open houses into the public domain. It went for review, and we got that approved. So I think that bodes well for the other major project or a permit, and that is the mine operating permit. Now, we submitted our mine operating permit application in September of last year. It had to go through a completeness review, went through that. Then it went into a technical review phase. So we are in the process at the moment of addressing the comments from the first round of technical review with the authority. We will then be submitting that within the next couple of weeks, our responses to those comments. We don't see any showstoppers there. We probably have another round of comments from the agency once we submit our answers, our responses. And then we get to technical completeness. It goes to the public, and then we would hope that we could have a permit, a mine operating permit in place as soon as the earlier part of next year.
Neat. Well, that'd be awesome. Before we move on from CK and go down a little bit south to Nevada, there's been some discussion, perhaps, that one of the elements for the company, once the mine is developed, would be, you mentioned that there's a quarry just a few miles down the road already, that you might be able to sell some aggregates for construction and things like that. Where's that stand right now?
Well, look, we haven't put that into our permit application at the moment, but, we operate on state land. So, in the fullness of time, I would imagine the state would be very interested in the potential for us to permit the beneficial use of some of the waste rock that we have to mine and set aside as a consequence of mining the copper and gold. I've never had the opportunity to do this before, because all of the mines I've operated in the past have been in remote locations. But gosh, we're 20 miles outside of Cheyenne, Wyoming. We're at the north end of the Colorado Front Range, and there is so much development going on in the area. As you can see in my background photo, we've got these windmills going up with big concrete monoliths. We've got a whole bunch of civil work going on. So the demand for rock is great. Our neighbors are selling rock. They don't have the benefit of having copper and gold in their rock. They're selling it for somewhere approaching $20 a ton. And we've got this, we need some of our rock just to stabilize our dry stack tailings, but we've got maybe 30 million tons of rock sitting out there for potential beneficial use, and the state can get a 60% royalty on every ton of that. So I think in the fullness of time, there'll be some additional benefit to the the project by selling rock for aggregate.
Well, that'd be neat. Folks, as a reminder, I encourage you after you get done listening to George and myself, take the time to go to their website, read their corporate presentation. You're seeing a few of the slides from that and a couple of photos up here, but there's really a lot more to dive into as far as a lot of the plans the company has laid to make this an attractive project, an economically beneficial one if it all works out, and of course, a rewarding one for shareholders. Lastly, on CK, the PFS that is out presently suggested about a $220 million upfront capital cost. Any rough ideas? And of course, this is still a work in progress, I'm sure. But where those funds would come from?
Well, Chris, I think we've all seen the effects of inflation and so on. So, we're going to be a little ways north of that, but not too far north of it. And we are engaging. A lot of that capital is associated with the equipment that we're going to be buying from some of the Scandinavian producers who have access to sovereign wealth funds. We've also got potential for a little bit of state development capital, but we have been engaging with the private equity folks. We could maybe sell some metal forward, and once we get recognition, get away from this notion of permit risk and so on. Maybe there's an equity component as well. So yeah, it's a fair amount of money to raise, but I think that there's going to be a good avenue to raising that capital.
Well, I would suspect so, especially for a project like this. Moving on, a project that you have down in the state of Nevada is quite interesting. It's the Keystone Gold Project, and here on the screen, it's an area that you guys have consolidated into just your own set of hands that has seen disparate exploration here and there over the years. You've got a really nice neighbor in Cortez, as you can see here, folks. And one of the things that way back when I first started learning about the company, this is what jumped out at me, because a lot of folks know, of course, the history that Nevada has for silver and gold mining, both monstrous mines that are operated by Barrick and Newmont in the past, of course, now under their joint venture company as well, and a handful of smaller players. But the big hunt has always been in Nevada for major sources of where all of the disseminated silver and especially gold come from, because the state's littered with it. You can't pick up a handful of dirt without at least a speck of gold in it, it seems, in a state. The question is where you find the economical stuff, and especially the big economical stuff. And the geology of Keystone is unique, and that there's a suggestion that the main geology is a lot shallower there potentially than it's been for some of the other places. So give us an overview, if you would, of Keystone.
Well, look, Chris, I came on board. We pivoted away to develop CK Gold Project, but because money for exploration and in Nevada is pretty expensive, was tight. So we pivoted towards development. But gosh, we've got 20 square miles of prospective ground on trend, as you say, with the Cortez complex operated by Nevada Gold Mines, the JV between Barrick and Newmont. That same formation, Wendan 5, that hosts the big discoveries in the Cortez complex, it's underlaying our area. We've got pathfinder anomalies at surface, which are just outstanding. And one of our founders puts it like this: we've only done a little bit of scout drilling. You've got something which is the size of Manhattan Island, and we've got just a handful of holes, and we're trying to intersect the block that houses the Empire State Building. So we got a lot of work to do. It's costly, but great opportunities there. We've got near surface oxides, which could host an oxide deposit. and then those great big, massive sulfide, high-grade sulfide deposits, which the big Nevada mines are transitioning to. So we're going to revive that at some point, but at the moment our attention has been focused on CK. But the exploration potential there is really exciting. You don't get a land package like that pulled together very often, and there's a lot of upside, which we simply don't think that we're getting any recognition for at the moment. So as an investor, gosh, that's a great opportunity.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and you don't always pull a land package together like that any place, let alone in a place like the state of Nevada, where there's been so much activity over the years. So it's fair to say, George, that you don't have any intention of diluting the shares or anything in a market like this until there's some greater recognition of share price, or maybe you get more traction on CK in Wyoming, and that gives you the benefit of being able to turn some attention down to Nevada.
So, Chris, we're management, the founders of the company, we're big shareholders. We're not going to go out there and dilute our shareholder base. We need to get that recognition. We're working on the value proposition for CK. We'll get the permits. Keystone's time will come, and we'll be doing the exploration, at some point. But right now, you're dead right. We don't want to dilute while we're seeing the lower share prices. But we have entertained the notion of some partnerships, people coming in. We haven't attracted an offer which seems to make sense for such a valuable land package, but we're certainly open to suggestions from folks who maybe want to share in that opportunity. So we'll see where that ends up.
Well, and fortunately, you're not in a position where you have to do anything. You can bide your time and do the best. You mentioned the shareholder base. We're going to close with that in just a few minutes, because that's one of the more compelling parts of U.S. Gold story. But before we do that, you've got one other property of note in the state of Idaho. Is that something else that's also on the shelf to see what happens down the road, the Chalice project?
Yeah, no, the Chalice project was brought in 2020. There's a historic 325,000 ounce resource there. It's non-compliant at the moment. We're going to look for that data, and we've got we're reviving a plan of operations and permits for drilling there. It's in the national forest. It's a little bit of a slower process, but a great opportunity. Gosh, we're just down the road. It's a mining area. We're just down the road for some projects, and in the fullness of time, that will also be a great opportunity. But again, we're focused on CK at the moment.
Well, in closing up, you've got the CK project, which is kind of I think in the near term is going to be the bread and butter of the company. And if all goes well, George, I think it's going to be the coming out as a mining company, not an exploration company, but a mining company for U.S. Gold. And hopefully that will parlay into these other projects getting some attention and maybe some development down the road. The big story, I think, here, folks, when you look at the share count of U.S. Gold, you're under 10 million shares out.
Yeah, 9.3 million shares outstanding. We've been very judicious about diluting our shareholders.
And you seldom see that. I mean, you're into the billions of shares with some companies that are great at selling paper, but they don't get very far along. So that's an especially compelling part of your story, is the management's involvement, the low share count, And the fact that when you do get some good news out, hopefully down the road, in addition to the success you've had putting together this resource to begin with, it's something that ought to give you a whole lot more traction, I would think. And this is why I added you back to my recommended list. I'm a shareholder myself. I like what you're doing. And again, this Made in America copper and gold and maybe aggregate story as well. It's a no-brainer, and you've got the local support and working toward the last of permits you need and so forth. So anything else as far as a takeaway, George, you want folks to know about?
No, I think you've summed it up nicely, Chris. I'm not doing this necessarily because I have to. I'm doing it because I like doing what I'm doing, and I'm sort of proud to be putting in what I think is going to be an important, modest but important part of domestic production, copper and gold in the good old US of A, and contributing there. So well, I think we stay tuned. We're moving through the steps in a conservative, orderly manner, and preserving our shareholder value as best we can.
Neat. Well, we certainly will stay tuned. And folks, again, make sure you visit US Gold's website, follow them on social media, sign up for their alerts and get on their email list. It's a great, compelling story, and you don't see a company very often, even in the poor market that we've had, that's selling for a fraction of what its net present value is. And again, I think that's a lowball figure for CK even now, let alone with some upgrades to that pre-feasibility study that may come later. And when you look at the future, I think that commodities generally, and copper and gold specifically, have in just a few years down the road, I think it's a great story. So make sure you keep up with them. Of course, I'll be providing updates from time to time as well, and can't wait to see the first bit of ore go through an eventual mill, George. So thanks for your time. Yeah, thanks for your time today, and continued best of luck. Look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you, Chris. Have a good day.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.